These are cards you should always draft in Marvel superheroes. Now, always is a bit of a strong word, so let's just say these are cards you should strongly consider when you see them in packs because they are fantastic and will help you win more games. First up is Claw, Sonic Subjugator. For 2 and a black, you get a 2/2 human rogue villain with the ability Sonic Attack. When Claw enters, target player reveals a number of cards from their hand equal to 1 plus the number of creature cards in your graveyard. You choose one of them, that player discards that card. So when you play this guy on turn 3, you're getting a nice clean 2-for-1. You get a 2/2 body. They're going to discard a card from their hand. Usually you're going to be able to trade that 2/2 body for a creature that they end up playing. And so that's a nice 2-for-1. You're getting a board presence. You're getting some value. That's great. If you draw him in the middle stages of the game when your opponent only has a couple of cards in hand, you can usually have a creature or 2 in your graveyard and just choose their best spell. So if they're trying to hold a land to protect against a different discard effect, you can just get the good spell that they've been holding and protecting for a while in the late game if they have a removal spell that they haven't had a good target for or things like that. And so Claw Sonic Subjugator scales well into the game. His baseline is generally very, very strong. And in the situations where you're in a top deck war and your opponent has no cards in hand, he's still going to be a body that affects the board state. So even in the worst case scenario, he at least does something, but generally he's going to be a 2-for-1 and a lot of the time a 2-for-1 that even gets to take some selection on what he's taking from your opponent. Great card. Next up is Hero in Training, kind of the opposite of Claw. For 2 and a white, you get a 2/2 human hero that says, when this creature enters, draw a card. If you control another hero, you gain 2 life. So you get a really, really strong effect here of a 2/2 body that draws a card. Unlike Claw, this is always going to draw you the card. And so even if you top deck it later, you're still going to draw that card. Even if you don't have another hero, you're going to draw the card. And the hero bonus of gaining 2 life is actually pretty relevant in racing situations. 2 life is definitely not nothing. And the fact that you can swing a race in your favor with the life gain while getting great value on a creature, as we already mentioned, a 2/2 is usually going to be able to trade with something your opponent does. And so this is a really, really strong common, and you should not let this slip past you. Don't let the rarity fool you. Don't let the fact that it's just a 2/2 body fool you. This card is fantastic, really, really strong, and one you should be taking very, very highly. Next up is Khazar of the Savage Land. For 4 and a green, you get a 3/2 human barbarian hero that says you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands from the top of your library, and when Khazar enters, create Zabu, a legendary 2/2 green cat creature token with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Zabu. So when you play this card, you get 2 bodies, both of which are very, very strong. Khazar himself lets you play lands from the top of your deck. Every time you do that, it's basically like you drew a card. And if you play him with a land drop to go, so like you played him on turn 6 after you have 5 lands in play, if you have a land on top, you get to immediately play that land. The thing about Zabu that's nice is that Zabu is also a threat that really puts some pressure on your opponent because you get to play lands from over the course of the game as the game continues, and you have a growing threat that your opponent has to deal with. So your opponent kind of is kind of forced into a situation where they have to deal with both parts of the card, which is really, really strong. And if both parts stick around, they synergize really nicely together. So if your opponent doesn't immediately kill the Khazar, you get the growing 2/2. If they kill the 2/2 that's going to grow, you get the value from the Khazar. And regardless, the way they're going to answer these things, if they have to use a couple removal spells, that's still a 2-for-1 in and of itself, not to mention if you do get to play any lands off of the Khazar itself. So really, really fantastic card here, going to get you tons of value at the top end of your green decks, and it's just a phenomenal card you should be really looking to play. Next up is Justice Van Astrovik. For 2 and a blue, you get a 2/2 mutant hero with flying, and when Justice enters, return up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent to its owner's hand. Whenever another non-land permanent you control is returned to its owner's hand, put a +1/+1 counter on Justice. So a 3-mana 2/2 that flyer that bounces something is already just fantastic. Like, you're going to generally be targeting a non-land, non-token permanent anyway, and so just bouncing like your opponent's 4-drop or something like that is going to be stellar. The fact that you get the extra upside of being able to bounce your own non-land permanents can also be really nice because not only will Justice be a bit bigger, and a 3/3 flyer is a considerable size, but you also can sometimes get extra value if you have a creature with an enters effect, or you have something that's like trapped under a removal spell, or it's got like some reason to bounce it back to your hand. You can really get some extra value with the Justice if you are able to do that. You can even just use it in the mid to late game to give a creature pseudo vigilance. You attack with it, then you play Justice, bounce it back to your hand, replay it, that sort of thing. And overall, it's just a fantastic card, great rate. When you're just playing this as a tempo card, it's great. When you're playing it as a little bit of extra value, bouncing your own things, it's great. Overall, just a stellar card that you're really happy playing. Next up is Jessica Jones, Private Eye. For 2 and a red, you get a 2/3 human detective hero that has tap. Put a stun counter on Jessica Jones. exile the top X cards of your library, where X is Jessica Jones's power. You may play those cards this turn. So if you play this on turn 3, on turn 4, you activate it. If you hit any lands, you can play those. If you hit like cheap plays, you can play those. And generally, the way Jessica Jones works is if your opponent doesn't immediately kill it, you get to activate it, get maybe 1 or 2 cards off of it. Then in a couple turns, you get to activate it again, get maybe 1 or 2 cards off of it. And over the course of the game, you just get this snowballing advantage from a 3-drop that your opponent really just has to kill on sight. And if they don't, you just end up in a huge advantageous situation. Jessica Jones is really worth prioritizing and definitely the sort of card that can take over a game by itself. Next up is Red Guardian Super Soldier. A lot of these cards you've been seeing are these value creatures, and that's because that's just a really strong type of card and one you need to prioritize. For 2 into white, you get a 2/2 legendary creature, human soldier villain with flash. When Red Guardian enters, destroy target creature an opponent controls that dealt damage this turn. So basically, one of the easiest ways to have this work is your opponent attacks you with a creature, you take the damage, and then you flash in Red Guardian, kill their creature, which is just a really powerful play. Imagining a 3-mana 2/2 that just kills your opponent's 4-drop or kills your opponent's 5-drop. Sure, you have to take some damage for that to work, but it's such a powerful effect that it's still worth doing. You can also do this if your opponent uses like a fight spell or something like that, or maybe your opponent like attacks and you had to like chump block a creature and then you use Red Guardian if your life total is low. Basically, it's just going to be a really effective way to deal with your opponent's threats. And while it is a bit of a downside that you have to like take the damage, the creature has to deal damage in this turn, it's still going to be a really strong card and one you want to take very highly, because it's not that hard to get this to just be an easy, clean 2-for-1, and oftentimes with a huge tempo swing associated with it, because you're killing maybe your opponent's more expensive card, like a 4-drop or something like that, and while also developing a 2/2 to your board state. Next up is She-Hulk, Jade Defender. It's 3 and a green for a 4/4 Gamma hero with reach and trample, and power up. 4 green, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment, put a +1/+1 counter on She-Hulk, and you can activate each power up ability only once and reduce the cost by her mana cost if she entered this turn. This is one of those cards that I often like to wait and just play and activate all in the same turn for 6 mana. And the reason for that is because it is really effective to be able to destroy artifacts and enchantments. The like 4/4 reach trample is a nice backup mode if you really just need to have something to play in the early turns of the game, but there are lots of artifacts and enchantments running around, and so you're generally going to have a target for this. You get to blow something up, you get a 2-for-1 while also developing a 5/5 to the board state. That's just a fantastic deal. And if you play it a little bit earlier, you give your opponent a chance to maybe deal with it, respond to it, and you'll have to spend the full 6 mana to power it up later anyway. And so oftentimes the best play is to just wait, get your guaranteed 2-for-1, because there is going to generally be a pretty good target for you to take out with the She-Hulk Jade Defender. And sometimes those cards are ones that your opponent's game plan doesn't plan on you being able to answer, because there's not as much artifact and enchantment removal as there is creature removal. So She-Hulk, really strong card, and just a nice 2-for-1 top end creature that's pretty huge. And the reach is surprisingly relevant as well, because there are a lot of flyers in this set. Next up is Dark Deed. For 1 and a black, you get an instant that says target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. This is just a 1-for-1 removal spell, but it's so efficient and at instant speed that it's still worth taking incredibly highly, because you're often going to be able to kill their 4-drops or sometimes even 5-drops with this sort of card. And even though it's not the same value as some of the other cards, the fact that it is such a huge mana advantage in many cases while just answering whatever you need to deal with, there's a lot of must answer threats in this format, and Dark Deed just gets the job done for a nice discount on the mana, and it plays really well with these sorts of value creatures, which are maybe a little bit understated sometimes, and then you supplement that with these super efficient removal spells, and Dark Deed just plays out really nicely in the format, and you should be taking it incredibly highly. Next up is Shield Deployment Drone. For 2 into blue, you get a 2/2 artifact creature with flying, and when this creature enters, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So this is just a really good stat line for 3 mana. A 2/2 flyer plus a 1/1 on the ground. You can attack with the 2/2 in the air. The 1/1 can kind of hold back any 1 toughness creatures your opponent has, or it can chip in on double blocks. Or if you want, you can use the 2/2 for double blocking duty and you'll be left with a 1/1. Basically, if you can trade off either half of this card, you get spotted an extra resource compared to your opponent, which isn't the same as some of the value cards we've been looking at here, but this is just a more efficient, like pure stat line for 3 mana than some of the cards we've been looking at, where you get like a 2/2 ground creature. This one's a 2/2 flyer plus a 1/1 ground creature, and that is still a very effective way to pull ahead in games, because then if you're making any trades of resources and you can be left with an extra 1/1 at the end of the day, or an extra 2/2 flyer or something like that, you end up in great shape. And there's some artifact synergies, so this being an artifact matters, and just overall, it's a card you're very happy playing and worth taking highly as a result. The final card we're looking at here is Agent 13 Sharon Carter, which might be my personal favorite to play with. It's 2 into white for a 3/2 human spy hero, and it says, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, investigate. There's a lot of scenarios where this can just take over the game completely. One easy way for it to get instant value is you have your classic curve, play a 2-drop, turn 3, play Agent 13, attack with your 2-drop, trade it with your opponent's 2-drop, and you just spotted a clue. So even if they then kill the Agent 13, you've still gotten that extra resource. So nice little 2-for-1. Another way is you have like an evasive creature, like a flyer, and all of a sudden you just get to attack with your flyer every turn, get a clue every turn, pull a head-on card advantage, because you can just get multiple clues every single turn. You can get a clue with Sharon Carter. One of the powerful aspects of it as well is you can play it pre-combat, attack that combat, immediately get that clue back. Also, a lot of the time you're willing to like trade a little bit down on stats, so you're willing to trade your 3/3 for one of their 2/2s because you're still getting spotted that clue, so which will draw you into more action, more creatures, which you can then use to trade off with your opponent's other creatures. And so overall, it just has a lot of play to it. It's really, really easy to kind of single-handedly take over the game with Agent 13 Sharon Carter. It's a lot of card advantage. The stat line itself is pretty reasonable as a 3-mana 3/2, and overall, it's a card you're extremely happy to be taking highly and playing in your decks. That's going to do it for this video, though. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, leave hashtag 10wins in the comment section down below, because these cards are winners and will help you win more games. That's going to do it for this one, though. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time.